The morning mist hung heavy over the valley, but it couldn't hide the raw, jagged scars where the silver maples used to be. Elias Thorne stood on his back porch, a chipped ceramic mug of black coffee cooling in his hands, staring at the space where 30 years of shade had been erased in a single afternoon. The stumps were white and bleeding sap, looking like bone fragments against the dark earth. Above them, perched on the ridge like a glass and steel vulture, sat the Miller residence. For the first time since they moved in, the Millers had what they wanted, an unobstructed, $300,000 view of the valley floor. Elias was a man of quiet habits. He had lived in this corner of the county since before the HOA was a whisper in a developer's ear. He remembered when Crestview Drive was a gravel track and the only neighbors were hawks and the occasional stray dog. When the suburbs expanded and the Crestview Homeowners Association swallowed his land, he had been grandfathered in with certain protections, or so he thought. He didn't care for the manicured lawns or the desert sand color palette requirements. He cared about his trees. The conflict had started subtly. A knock on the door, a firm handshake from Julian Miller, and an offer of $10,000 to thin out the canopy. Elias had declined. Then came the formal letters from the HOA board, signed by Sarah Jenkins, a woman who lived 2 houses down from the Millers. The letters claimed the trees were a fire hazard and an eyesore. Elias countered with an independent arborist report proving the trees were the healthiest specimens in the zip code. He thought the law was a shield. He didn't realize that to people like the Millers, the law was merely an obstacle to be bypassed. While Elias was away visiting his sister, the HOA executed a closed-door emergency order. They claimed the trees were an immediate risk. By the time Elias pulled his truck into the driveway on Sunday night, the canopy was gone. From his kitchen window, he could now see Julian Miller sitting on his glass-railed deck, sipping wine and looking down at the Thorne property. Elias didn't call the police. He didn't storm up the hill. Instead, he went to the basement of the county recorder's office. He spent 48 hours fueled by a cold, calculated fury. He found what he was looking for on a microfilmed plat map from 1968. The easement for the final turn of the cul-de-sac, the only entrance to the Miller driveway, was a non-permanent access easement. It stated that should the original structure be demolished, the easement would expire unless a new agreement was reached with the owner of the Servient estate. The Servient estate was Elias's lot. The original structure had been a cedar cabin the Millers had bulldozed to build their mansion. In their rush, their architects and the HOA's lawyers had missed a fundamental detail. The ground beneath the last 40 feet of the road had legally reverted to Elias the moment the cabin's foundation was ripped up. On Thursday morning, a flatbed truck arrived and dropped off 24 massive concrete Jersey barriers. Shortly after, a backhoe arrived. Elias pointed to the exact line where his property began, a line that cut diagonally across the asphalt of the cul-de-sac, effectively decapitating the Millers' access to the world. He didn't just block the road. He reclaimed it. By noon, the backhoe had ripped up the asphalt. Elias had the operator dig 3 deep holes right where the road used to be. Into those holes, he dropped the largest black walnut trees he could find. Around them, he dumped 6 tons of topsoil, creating a massive berm that obscured the Millers' view of his yard. He finished with a heavy-duty fence and private property signs. The first person to encounter the reclamation was Sarah Jenkins. She slammed on her brakes inches from a concrete barrier. "Elias, move these immediately. I have a board meeting." "You're trespassing, Sarah," Elias said quietly. "This isn't a road. It's a garden. My garden. This is a county-maintained thoroughfare." Elias handed her a photocopy of the 1968 deed. The county stopped maintaining this strip in '84. It's a private easement, and it expired 3 years ago. "You're standing on my orchard." By 5 p.m., the cul-de-sac was chaos. Julian Miller's face was a shade of purple that matched the sunset. Police cruisers sat with flashing lights. "Mr. Thorne, they're saying you've kidnapped them," the lead officer said. "They can walk out any time, officer," Elias replied. "But their cars are on a landlocked island. I didn't put them there. They chose to build without a valid easement." "I'll sue you for everything," Julian roared. Elias looked at him coldly. "The HOA already cost me my trees, Julian. You wanted a view? I hope you enjoy looking at my black walnuts. They grow 2 feet a year. And if you want a new road, you'll have to build through the southern slope, a protected habitat for the blue-spotted salamander. That'll take years of environmental impact studies." The HOA's lawyer arrived, threatening injunctions. Elias's lawyer, a specialist in spite fences, arrived shortly after. The conversation lasted until after dark. The HOA lawyer's confidence crumbled as he realized the paperwork was airtight. The developer had been lazy, the HOA had been arrogant, and the Millers had been cruel. "What do you want?" Julian Miller finally asked, looking defeated. His expensive sedan was trapped in the garage. "I want my trees back," Elias said. "Since you can't do that, here is the deal. The HOA issues a formal apology in the local paper. The HOA pays $200,000 for the value of the destroyed timber. And you, Julian, will pay for the installation of a 10-foot stone privacy wall along our shared line. Not a fence. A stone wall." "That's extortion," Sarah Jenkins cried. "No," Elias's lawyer countered. "This is a settlement to avoid a civil suit for timber trespass, which carries treble damages. If we go to court, Elias won't just own the road. He'll likely own the Miller's house." The HOA board folded first. The legal fees were mounting, and other homeowners were beginning to revolt over their dues being wasted. Sarah Jenkins resigned. The settlement was signed, the check was delivered, and the stone wall began construction. Elias used a portion of the money to buy the small, vacant lot on the other side of the miller's property, the only other exit route. He immediately donated it to the local nature conservancy as a permanent wildflower and bird sanctuary, ensuring that no road could ever be built through it. Today, the road simply stops. It turns into a lush garden with 3 thriving black walnut trees. Beyond them stands a magnificent stone wall. Behind that wall, the millers still have their house, but they no longer have their view. The wall and the trees ensure that when they look out their floor-to-ceiling windows, they see only the consequence of their own arrogance. Elias still sits on his porch every evening. The shade isn't quite what it used to be, but the silence is better. He learned that while a view is worth a lot of money, a good neighbor is worth far more. He drew his line in stone and sapling, a boundary that no amount of money could cross.